The papacy of the Roman Catholic Church reached the height of its power in the 13th century. Theories of papal supremacy included a doctrine of fullness of power, as the spiritual head of Christendom and claims to universal authority all over secular rulers. But papal claims of this power were increasingly out of step with the growing power of the monarchies of Europe and ultimately brought the papacy into a conflict with the territorial states that it was unable to win. The struggle between Pope and King began during the pontificate of Pope Boniface VIII. One major issue appeared to be at stake between the Pope and King Philip IV the Fair of France. In his desire to acquire new revenues, Philip claimed the right to tax the French clergy. Boniface VIII responded that the clergy of any state could not pay taxes to their secular ruler without the Pope's consent. In short, the fundamental issue was that the universal sovereignty of the papacy versus the royal sovereignty of the monarch. Boniface VIII asserted his position in a series of papal bulls, or letters, the most important of which was Unum Sanctum, issued in 1302. It was the strongest statement ever made by a pope on the supremacy of the spiritual authority over the temporal authority. When it became apparent that Boniface was going to excommunicate Philip, the latter sent a small contingent of the French forces to capture Boniface and bring him back to France for trial. The Pope was captured, although Italian nobles rescued him before he left the Italian lands. The shock of this experience, however, soon led to his death. To ensure his victory over papal power, Philip IV brought enough pressure to bear on the College of Cardinals to achieve the election of a Frenchman as Pope in 1305, Clement V. Using the excuse of violence in the streets of Rome, Clement moved the papacy to the city of Avignon, on the east bank of the Rhone River. He may have intended to return eventually to Rome, but he and his successors remained there for the next 72 years. The residency of the popes in Avignon for most of the 14th century led to a decline in papal prestige and growing anti-papal sentiment. The pope was the bishop of Rome, and his position was based on being the successor to St. Peter. It was unseemly that he should reside in Avignon. The splendor in which the Pope was living in Avignon led to a highly vocal criticism of the papacy and clergy. Avignon became a symbol of abuses within the church, and many people began to call for the Pope's return to Rome. In 1377, Pope Gregory XI, seeing the decline of faith, returned to Rome. He died soon after, in the spring of 1378. When the College of Cardinals met to elect a new pope, the citizens of Rome, fearful of another French pope, threatened the college of their lives unless Roman or at least an Italian was elected as pope. Thus, the cardinals elected Urban VI, an Italian. 5 months later, the French cardinals declared this election null and void and chose one of their own numbers, Clement VII, and promptly returned to Avignon. However, Urban remained in Rome, and now there were two popes. Thus, the Great Schism of the Catholic Church. Europe's loyalties were largely on political lines. France, Spain, Scotland, and southern Italy supported Clement and the Avignon papacy. England, Germany, Scandinavia, and most of Italy supported Urban and the Roman papacy. The Great Schism further contributed to the decline of faith, in that now two popes were taxing the people. At the same time, since the pope was believed to hold the kingdom of heaven, and both popes were claiming the other to be the Antichrist, people began to lose faith. The Great Schism led to large numbers of clergy to take up conciliarism, the belief that only a general council of the church could end the schism and bring reform to the church. The Council of Pisa met in 1409 and decided to dismiss both popes and elect a new one, Alexander V. The council's action proved disastrous when the two fired popes refused to step down. Now, there were three popes. In 1414, the Holy Roman Emperor, Sigismund, stepped in. A new council met at Constance from 1414 to 1418. The three competing popes either resigned or were deposed of by force, and Martin V was elected, and the Great Schism ended.